Hi friends, this is Miss Cindy. Today is Friday, April the 17th, and we are at our final journey with Caps for Sale. So, what have we learned? Well, let's go over our standards and objectives. Each slide we're going to talk about the standard that we learned and how we have mastered that throughout this story. The first one we did was ask and answer questions about key details in a text. Well, if you remember, let's look at some of the questions. What are the key parts in the story or text? How does describing the story elements help me to better understand the story or text? Who are the characters in this story? It was the peddlers and the monkeys. How would you describe the main character? If you remember and recall, he was very unusual. Where does the story take place? First, it was in the countryside. Then, no, it wasn't in the countryside. It was in the town, and then it was in the countryside. Does the setting change? Yes, the setting changes. The peddler goes for a walk in the countryside. What is the problem in the story? Well, the peddler took a nap under the tree, and when he woke up, the monkeys had stole all his hats. The major events, you would have titled them in the beginning, middle, and end. And how was the problem solved? Did the peddler get his hats back? What are the key details in this story? What have we learned? This standard describes character, setting, and major events in a story using key details. So here is where we would vocabulary recap again. Remember, we had our peddler, which is someone who sells items. Our wares, which was what we are selling. Ordinary is someone that is normally ordinary or usual. Our peddler was not because he wore his wares on his head. And country meant in the countryside and not in town. The third thing that we learned, if you remember, I asked you to draw a story map of your own using pictures and crayons and markers. So the other standard that we used was using illustrations and details in our story to describe its characters or settings, because sometimes we can't find the words to describe something, but we can recall the pictures. So here you see, this is an example. This is not from our book. This is from another book, Little Red Riding Hood. But as you can see, it says beginning, middle, and end. This is how you use illustrations or pictures and details from a story to describe its character, setting, or event. Retelling the main idea. If you remember, we place the correct number in order from the beginning of the book all the way to the end. Here we have retold the story, including key details, and we've demonstrated understanding of their central message or lesson. Narrative. The last standard that we learned was writing narratives in which they recount two or more appropriately sequenced events, including some details regarding what happened and using our words to signal event order or provide some sense of closure. So if you remember, we broke our story down with the keywords first, second, then, and finally. If you recall, in the beginning we had an unusual peddler that came to town to try to sell some wares or caps. Second, the peddler is having trouble selling caps in town, so he takes a walk in the countryside where he decides to take a nap under the tree. Then he wakes up to his surprise. His caps have been stolen by monkeys in the tree, and he finally gets them back. And then finally, he decides to go back to town to sell some caps again. So, all of this that we have done all week has revolved around one story, which is Caps for Sale. So please stay tuned for next week, and we will be starting a new book. Bye.